Members will recall that we commissioned Playboard to undertake a play plan audit of our play areas with the new council area, and that we hosted a number of consultation exercises in November, December in 2019. Playboard have subsequently visited all our 82 play areas. What they've done is they've scored them in terms of quality of play provision, and they've given them a RAG status, red, amber and green. So in total, 82 play areas were surveyed. In addition to this, we met with members within each of the specific 7 DEAs last November, and we spent quite a lot of time going through the audit findings with members, and eliciting the feedback from members as to ensure that the general direction of the play plan was going in the right way. And then we give an update in January just what the outcome of that play plan was. So really the purpose of today is to receive for all the members just an update from Alan in terms of where we are, just a kind of an overview, not necessarily to go back over the site-specific detail, because that A, will take too long, and B, we've already done that. And what we want to do then is move to the next stages, where we want to initiate a consultation exercise on the play plan, follow and bringing the detailed report back to committee. And then in tandem with that, we need to rule-proof it, and we also need to quality screen it. And then over the summer months, what we need to do is we really need to sit down and we really need to start getting some detailed costings around this, thinking about our funding strategy, thinking about our delivery mechanism, and thinking about our priorities. So I would very much see that as a co-design process with elected members within the DEAs and also the officer team, from our delivery perspective, from our planning perspective, and also from our funding perspective. So ultimately what we would like to do then is towards the end of the year is bring back a much more comprehensive plan as to this is the play plan and what it's going to look like going forward. So that's generally the overview of the process. Perhaps, Chair, what we can do is get a recommendation after we've got Alan's presentation, if that's okay. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Colin, for that. And we can bring in Alan Hearn now. Welcome, Alan, to the meeting here to give his presentation.
Chair, sorry, I've requested a question from the officer before we take the presentation.
Derek, I was minded to wait to the finish up till we get the presentation and then take questions on the Colin's update and the presentation from Alan. Would you be happy if we wait to that, Derek?
If that's your ruling, Chair, I'm not content, but I'll accept it. Thank you, Chair.
That's okay. Thank you. Alan?
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to come along. I'm just going to share my screen here, and we'll just run through a PowerPoint presentation. Hopefully everyone can see the presentation okay. If you have any problems, let me know. As Colin said, really what I want to do today is bring you up to date with where we are in terms of the play plan. Now, we are really, I suppose, we're approaching the end stages in terms of this piece of work. The majority of certainly the detail has now been completed in terms of the really the assessment of the play sites you have, the recommendations around those, and the identification of gaps and so on. So we are approaching that final stage, but really what I want to do is bring everyone up to date in terms of where we are, give you a broad overview in terms of what the plan in its current format would mean for the overall council area, and also then just touch briefly on what I suppose the next stages are as we seek to move this process towards its end point. Okay, so I just want to, before we get into the detail, I just want to sort of revisit, just for members, why council really decided to develop a new play plan for the new council area itself. And really there were four key reasons behind it. Number one, the council have a commitment to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. Now I have specifically highlighted Article 31 there, which is the right to play. But the council do have an overarching commitment to UNCRC, and the development of a play plan really is seen as a critical aspect of that commitment for council moving forward. The plan itself really has also been developed to identify or to establish a strategic framework for play. So really what the play plan will do is for the next 15 years, it helps you to map out and to identify the key capital investments and indeed the key non-capital investments Council will make with a view to fulfilling the right to play and also to enhancing your current level of play provision, whether that be fixed or non-fixed. Fundamentally, we know that public finance is at the core of many decisions, and ultimately we are in the midst of a pandemic, which will have a longer-term impact in terms of public finance. And really, the plan is there to help you to maximise your investment in play. Provides that very strategic framework, but it also helps to. It will also act as a document, and it will act as a strategic plan, which will support you as you seek to bring funding in, whether that be through public funds or whether that be identifying fundings from external sources. And the fourth element really, and I suppose this has been part of the process to date, it's really about embedding a participative approach to meeting play needs. So we have engaged throughout this process with communities. We will go out to engage again with communities before the play plan is finalised. And also as part of the play plan, it provides a very clear participative framework for ensuring that children and young people also have a part to play in the development and the establishment of play as you move forward. Process to date, I'm not going to go into detail on any of this. It's really just to bring you up to speed as to where we are. So we undertook a baseline study, and that was really looking at existing approaches to meeting play need within the council and within the legacy councils. And it was also looking at the wider strategic context, both really at that local, regional and international level. As Colin said, we've completed play value audits for the existing 83 play areas. We've ranked those and we've made a series of recommendations for each, and those recommendations really vary from a complete upgrade to maintain and monitor for those which are in fairly good condition and offer a high level of play value. We've mapped all of the sites using GIS data from the council, and that really has helped us to identify potential gaps within your current provision. So really identify those areas where you have either an existing population or a potentially growing population where play need is likely to emerge. And that really helps us to identify those sites, those areas which will require new play development over time. As Colin mentioned, we have had a fairly extensive community engagement. We've had online engagement through surveys with children, young people, parents, carers and community organisations. And we've also held a series of DAA sessions at a local level where, again, community members had an opportunity to feed in their views in terms of the existing play offering, but also to identify areas of obvious play need within their DAA and within the local community. And as part of the play plan as well, this is the final stage really, which we're working through alongside the consultation aspect, and it's the provision of design guidance. And really that's to try to ensure that any developments, any investments you put into fixed play in the future will best quality, will adhere to best practice, and will include, for example, recognition of inclusive play need, incorporation of more and variety and choice in terms of the types of play activities that you offer as a council. Okay, so again, just really, some of you will have, if you've been in the DAA sessions we held at the end of last year, you'll be familiar with your own play areas. You'll have gone through some of this process in terms of your DAAs, but this is really to give you the overall picture. So when we assess those play areas, as Colin says, we've ranked those, and when we look at it, we have 6 play areas at the moment which are falling into what we would count as our top band, so scoring 6 to 800 in terms of play value. At the moment, those are spread across 6 of the 8 DAAs, so Derry and Waterside, the 2 which at this moment don't have a play area in that top rank. And these are the sites which we would say really are offering your high level of play value. And these sites, beyond maintaining and monitoring, really will remain at the core of your quality play delivery for the next 15 years. The second category we have then, which runs from 480 up to 600. You have 23 play areas falling within that upper band. I've just listed each of those play areas on the slide there. We won't go into detail on them, but you can also see the DAA spread there. These 23 sites really, we would say, are currently offering a good to fair level of play value. And really for the majority of these, they will require upgrading at some point during the 15 years, but it's unlikely to be in the first, we would say, 10 years really. These sites are the ones which are still continuing to deliver what we would see as an adequate level of play value. Moving down the listing then, so we're moving down towards those sites which are really moving into that, I suppose, the more upgrade territory. You've 25 play areas spread across the council which fall within this lower band. So that lower band runs from 400 up to 480. These are sites which we would say are generally beginning to, the ones at the top end of the scale are beginning to show wear and tear. They're beginning to show a bit of a devaluation in terms of play value. And these are the sites which will require upgrading over the duration of the play plan. So we're kind of getting into the territory of those sites which are going to be falling into that, probably the 5 to 10, possibly year 4 time frame. And finally, the bottom 28 then, which are the lowest player value sites, all under 400 in terms of their player ranking. These are sites which we would say really any site under 400 we would say is not offering any significant level of player value. It's not meeting even basic play needs for children and young people. And that can be for any number of reasons. It may be that the play park is old, it's showing wear and tear. It may be that the equipment itself is just reaching the stage where it is no longer appealing to children and young people. Or it may well be that the site is located in an area which does not really lend itself or is not conducive to children and young people's play. So these sites really will be at the front, I suppose, of the upgrade process within the play plan. These are the sites where you will need a focused capital investment on. Now, since we carried out the play values assessments, there have been a number of developments. So you'll see on the screen there we have 6 play areas. So there has been some works commenced within the time frame. So just starting at the top there, Maher Mason, there's a full upgrade has been carried out in that. Now we've projected play values based on their paper based and their plan based. So we haven't visited the sites, but that site we would assess as moving from a 405 play value score, which really put it right on the edge of that lowest category. So we're projecting that up to 570, which moves it nicely up towards the top of that second highest category. Sion Mills, it's a new play park. We're assessing that as 590, and Morn Park, which is also new at 500. And you can see that Eglinton has a full upgrade, which I believe is on site either now or will be in shortly, and it would be rising from 475 to 560. So those are all parks which are moving up into what we would see as certainly a more than acceptable level of play value. The bottom 2 you have there, Ardstraw and Ardegarvan. You'll notice they're moving up. They're only moving up really into that third band. Now there's a reason for that, the reason being they're partial upgrades. So there's been some replacement of equipment, there's been some enhancement of the sites, but they are only partial. Those upgrades are moving them up in terms of their play value. So we would say they are now offering a level of play value. It's also important to note in terms of those sites, they're quite small sites, and in truth, it's going to be very difficult to move their play value really beyond probably that third orange category. Some sites, just due to their geography, due to the size and due to the scope, will never move into those upper categories. So for council, the aim should be to achieve the highest level of play value you can, given the restrictions that are on that site. But again, we are seeing within both of those, we're seeing that uplift in terms of their play value. Okay, so as part of the plan itself then, we went through this with councillors at the DEA sessions. We won't go into too much detail, but really at the core of all play strategies and all play plans are a set of distance criteria known as accessibility benchmark standards. And they really define the radial coverage area, the geographical coverage emanating from each play area. And those radial distances of the play park itself. So as part of this process, we have 3 designated place identified: local play areas, neighbourhood and district, and the radial distances have been set for each of those. So for the local play areas, which would be the smaller ones, typically those located within probably more rural areas, areas of lower population density villages and smaller estates, we're looking at a radial distance of 400. So effectively that play area would be determined to be offering a play opportunity or a play experience for children and families living within that 400-metre radial. For neighbourhood play areas, obviously slightly larger, going to have a broader range of play in terms of the age range, possibly including the likes of free play space, multi-use games areas, kickabout areas. Certainly likely to have inclusive play equipment within them, and they may have car parking. So those sites which people are going to be more willing to travel to, we're setting a radial distance of 750 for those. And then district play areas, which really are your largest play areas, those set within probably more expansive or larger parklands, likely to have, for example, more inclusive play equipment, support services on site, car parking, may well have connections to greenways and so on. We're setting the radial distance at 1,000. Now, those radial distances are broadly in line with the national standards. The neighbourhood one has increased from up to 750, and that's really to take into account local geography and local settlements. The national standards really don't apply, or they don't translate across into a Northern Ireland context. They were developed for England and Wales, so we do tend to adjust them to take into consideration our local factors. Okay, so I'm going to look at each of the DEA areas here. Now, we're not going to go into too much detail because we would be here for quite a while, but what we have done within each of these slides is we've identified the key actions for the play areas within each DEA. We also on the map have identified each of the existing play areas, and we have mapped on the enhancement. If you look here, the grey spaces really are potential new play areas which are council led. So you have two within this DEA, Culm, and there's a proposed upgrade of Templemore, both of which would be up to a district level. We've also mapped on the private play areas or developer-led play areas. So these are in some cases housing associations, in some cases they will be private developers who are building estates, and those are the sites which have the dark blue line around them. And really what we're trying to show in these maps is that within the play plan, the aim is to try to provide optimal population coverage. So when we look at each of these DEA maps, each of those black dots within the DEA is a household. And really what we want to try to achieve is almost complete coverage. Almost complete coverage will not be possible given that the fact that we are also within rural DEAs, but it's to try to maximise the amount of coverage within each of those. Within Ballyarnett DEA, probably the key thing really is the potential new play areas identified. So we've Carnhill, Elmore, Earhart and Culmore Country Park, which there's a design is currently ongoing. And as I say, we have a number of enhancements there. We have Templemore, Ballyarnett and Culmore also going through an enhancement, and then a number of those which are deemed to be of sufficient play value at this stage. No immediate action, but they will obviously be held under review. Waterside DEA then, so a number of potential new play areas identified. Top of the hill, we have one around Waterstone Park, Windridge Way and Thornley Gardens area, one around Knightsbridge, Pelham Road and Sevenoaks, and also Lincoln Court. We also have upgrades identified for 3, Carrieran, Stevenson's Park and Fountain Hill. There is an enhancement also identified for St Colum's Park. There are some issues there in terms of the timber construct. And we've also identified a number of areas for further consultation, really looking at removal or transformation sites. So those are Fawn Crescent, Fawn View, Rossdowney Drive and Milltown View. When we say transformations, what we mean is that generally that means removing old low play value play equipment and replacing the site with something which will be open to more community usage, but can also include playable features. Derry DEA then, so we have one potential new one, Drumnaga, depending on future need really. We have a number of upgrades within that, and you can see them on the screen there, Killen, Hillview, Glebe, Clooney Gardens and so on. So those are all sites which would be deemed to be of a lower play value and require upgrade. There's an enhancement at Castle Park, which is in Castle Derg, so that would see it moving up to a district level, and also Vaughan's Home, which is located on Sperrin DEA, but the coverage radial falls into Derg as well. We have Mitchell Park identified as a potential removal or transformation. In Strabane then, a number of new sites or new play areas identified. Tullacore, Grangewood and Glenside, Ashdale, Farnbrook and Brookfield, Belledew, Laurel Drive and 5 Acres, the Adria site there, which is in the centre, and then Castletown Road. We also then, in addition to that, we have a number of potential upgrades, so Carlton Drive and Ballycoleman bottom, and 3 enhancements up to neighbourhood level, and a number there with no immediate action identified. Foylside then, so 3 potential new play areas, St Athansard, Grange and Grangemore being one site, Cosquin where planning has been approved, and the Lower Strand Road. Lower Strand Road slightly different, it's not a play area, it's not a fixed play area with swings and roundabouts and so on. It's really looking at playable features that could go along the riverfront there. And then Templemore, which is in the neighbouring DEA, but it's in as a district enhancement. Fawn DEA then, so 3 potential new ones: Prehan, Tanaharan and Breedy. Upgrades at Machar Mason, which is, as you see, is currently under construction, Trimley Crescent and Eglinton, and then Strathfoyle with an enhancement, and that's really around it's a very good site, high play value, but it's the introduction of inclusive play equipment onto the site, which has been identified by the community as a need. Sperrin then, 3 potential new play areas. You have Street Iron, Ballymagori and Crana. A number of upgrades again, as you can see on the screen: Douglas Bridge, Ardegarvan, Glenmornan, Camas. 2 parcels, Learmont and Cumber House, and then 3 enhancements: Plumbridge, Donamana to neighbourhood level, and Vaughan's Home to neighbourhood or district. That's still to be determined. And then a couple of removals there with Sperrin Heritage, which is low play value and is really not used anymore, and Allen Park. And the Moor. So you have again, you have 3 sites there for new: Nixon's Corner, Glenowen, and St. Ethan's Grange Moor, and Ard Grange, which we've mentioned already within Foyleside DEA, which is neighbouring. But again, the radial touches into this DEA. Upgrade for Bull Park, the removal or transformation of Kildrum Gardens, and the enhancement of Oakland Park to include inclusive play equipment. So in terms of the overall council, then you're looking at over the duration of the play plan, 23 potential new play areas, 24 upgrades, 14 enhancements, 9 removals, stroke transformation, and 34 which at the moment really are in the no immediate action. So that's those which you're maintaining and monitoring. They're currently providing an adequate level of play value. Okay, so just in terms of the wider play plan, the play plan is, the capital element is a major part of it. However, there are wider issues that need to be addressed. And within the consultation and throughout the DEA sessions, we identified a range of other issues which the play plan is working to provide some solutions or some guidance on. We are looking at the issue of youth provision, something which came up consistently right across the community consultations, but also within the DEA sessions around youth provision. So really we're talking about the older age groups, and those groups for whom really fixed play parks are no longer provide them with the level of, I suppose, play and recreation they need. It's those young people who are moving into their teenage years, and it's about how we can actually provide them with activities that will keep them engaged and will provide them with the social play opportunities they need. Urban sports came through, not to a massive degree, but there certainly is a very active lobby looking at the development of urban sports. So we are talking here about, for example, outdoor skate spaces, outdoor spaces that have street furniture that lends itself to urban sports, skateboarding, and so on. And also there's an identified need for non-fixed approaches. When we talk about non-fixed, we mean those approaches which are not fixed play based. So it's not community play. It's about using play rangers to go out and create play spaces within communities. It's very much around, I suppose it's more of a traditional play ranger type approach, and that's something which the play some guidance and support on. There's some work to be done in terms of new residential developments. So we will be linking in, the play plan will be linking in quite closely with the planners around this side. One of the key difficulties faced really both within your own council and across Northern Ireland has been residential developments going up, a large number of houses, family housing coming in, but no provision left for play. And then council are asked to come in often to an area with very little free land. So the play plan's linking in with the planners to hopefully to address those issues before they get to the stage of where that actually becomes a major problem. Inclusive play, again, the play plan will provide clear guidance in terms of inclusive play. We'll be linking in with, we're doing a piece of work at the moment at a national level with the Play Safety Forum. And again, we'll be linking into inclusive play guidance emerging from that. So you'll have very clear guidance in terms of how you can ensure that children with disabilities, their families, and children with more complex needs can have their play needs met in the developments. And also then we have looked at specifically at rural play need. I just want to break it down a wee bit further later on. It'll be coming up in the next slide. One other thing within the play plan will be the establishment of a play partnership. Again, it was quite clear with it, when you review play at a council level, there's only so much council can do. Council tend to be the go-to organisation. If people want play, they go to the council. Quite often, council can't do a lot about certain issues. So, for example, you mentioned youth issues, teenage issues. Those are the types of issues where we need engagement with youth service. When it comes to inclusive play, we need the disability sector involved within that. When it comes to issues around, for example, antisocial behaviour, PSNI, and so on and so forth. So within the play plan, there will be a model for a play partnership established, and some initial work has been done around identifying who would be a part of that. And really that partnership's role would be to oversee the implementation of the play plan, but also look to see how additional resources can be brought to bear. So the burden doesn't just lie on council, but actually, for example, youth service, education, PSNI, etc., could be contributing as you try to enhance play across the council. I mentioned the rural play need there, so we have done a bit of focus work with some of the rural DEAs around this, and we've come up with an option-based approach. One of the key issues in terms of rural areas is land, the lack of land and ownership of council. So we've come up with an approach which really looks at a number where you don't have access to land. There are a number of options available to council. So one of the ones which has worked well in other areas is dual development with primary schools. So we know that in rural areas, primary schools tend to provide a focal point. So there may be opportunities to develop play areas and player spaces which are open both to the community, but which the schools can access as well as part of outdoor learning. We're also providing a model which looks at dual development with sports clubs. So again, where council don't have access to land, they may be able to partner up with sports clubs to access land that is already there, which can then be developed to provide to meet capital play needs. Also looking at statutory partners and really looking at land banks, and I suppose we're looking at the likes of the housing executive, for example, who may have some land within rural areas, which would lend itself to play development. And again, looking at how a partnership can be established there. And I suppose ultimately the option you probably don't want to be reaching is land purchase, where council are having to go out to actually purchase land off private landowners. We know that can be expensive, and we know that particularly where landowners know there's a demand, and council are being asked to meet that demand, prices can go up. And as I mentioned before, in terms of the planning side of things, really the critical thing from this point onwards, of course, with the planning powers, to ensure that where you have new developments, where you have new residential developments, that they actually plan in and provide play space as a part of that development itself. So in terms of the next steps then, we are continuing to map those, I've mentioned through some of the DAA maps there, the private developer sites or sites that are, for example, run by housing associations. We are continuing to identify and map those out. We have a fairly complete picture, but we're conscious that there may be some that have fallen through the loophole, so we are continuing to update that. We're also working to identify new planning developments, and again, that's a process which will continue really beyond and right through the play plan process itself. We've commenced the mapping of primary schools, and again, that's really linked into the rural play dimension. That again will continue, and it's one which will have to continue. We're aware that there may be school closures in the future as well, which will affect rural areas, and that's something which we'll just need to keep an eye on. As Colin mentioned, really the next stage, the fundamental stage will be the final consultation on the draft play plan. So that's really, we're aiming for April and May, and that will be going back out to the public, providing them with an overview really of how the play plan has come together, the implications in terms of the individual play areas within each DEA, and really seeking further community feedback. And that'll also be a further opportunity for us to identify, is there something that has been missed? Are there locations that have somehow fallen through the cracks? We can then incorporate a final look at those to make sure that that the play plan is as overarching as possible. Colin then mentioned the costing of final recommendations, and there has been some work done in terms of indicative costings, but obviously there needs to be a wee bit more detailed work put into that. So really we're looking at that coming through once that final consultation is completed and when we have a full picture. And then really, I suppose the final stage is the finalisation of the plan and really the sign off, I suppose, and by yourselves, and the move to operationalisation. Now we've put that in for September, October, and again, I suppose we'll be led by events on the ground. We know that this process has been delayed due to COVID and so on. But as I say, I think we are now in the final stages of it. We have a fairly complete picture. I think we have a fairly clear plan of where we need to get to. And we also now have the opportunity just to do a final test for that before we present you with the final overarching play plan itself. Okay, so that's me finished. I'll just stop sharing at that stage.
Thank you very much for that, Alan. A very detailed presentation. And look, I have to agree, it has been a huge piece of work going out and consulting with the DEAs and putting this presentation together. And yes, you have highlighted the areas where there are high value play, a lot of them in there very much on the low. And look, they need upgrading. And then we have the others then who have none at all, where there are gaps. But the only thing I would say is it's good to include there in the discussions, and I've had this in our own DA discussion and around the lack of land, and I think it's a very, very positive idea to be linking up, with schools or sports clubs, and especially the statutory agencies, if they have any spare land, because as you quite rightly said, if we go out to land purchase, somebody has a piece of land, they tend to know what it's worth when council are looking for it, to put a facility on it. And I think quite rightly you identified probably we have a lot of gaps and issues and around the play area there. But I think what we really need is someone coming together on capital and finance. And I know this has been raised on a number of occasions, even coming up through the rates meetings and stuff like that there, and around just the capital to finance. And there are a lot of projects in there, a lot of upgrades needed, and a lot of areas where there is no play value at all. But I would open it up now to the floor. I have a number of speakers here, and there's Alderman Hussey, Alderman Kerrigan, Rory McHugh, Councillor Tina Burke, Stephen Edwards, and Councillor Christopher Jackson. So I'll take them for questions now. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair. Before I continue with the rest, can I ask an initial question before I go on to the rest? When did Play Board present their first report to this council on the state of play areas in the council area? When was that first presented?
Colin,
Chair,
do you want?
yeah,
Go ahead.
Chair, can we have Colin maybe answer that for us?
Yep,
Thank you.
yep, I guess Colin. Are you there, Colin?
Sorry about the late reaction there, members. The first play board in terms of presentation, but officers gave a presentation in terms of an update in January, and that was on the basis of the engagement that we did with members in the DEAs. So we had quite a lot of DEA participation in terms of going through the audit detail. So this is Play Board's first formal presentation to committee.
Chair, if I can continue, I mean, I was reading some documentation there where I thought I seen that it was December 2019 that council first received information in regard to the dire strait of quite a few play areas throughout our district council. And Alan, I thank you for the report. I thank Play Board. I thank you for your interaction that has occurred with the various DEAs. And I think I've been involved twice now because you've also presented to the local community growth partnership board in my own area, and indeed you have come. But I'm disappointed that issues have been red flagged, and folk are asking, well, okay, they've been red flagged, particularly with regard to our existing play areas. Now, I'm going to look at one which is in the red zone, namely Kiln. It got a score of 250. I would invite anybody on this virtual meeting to go to Kiln and look at what exists there. Now, I know Kiln is down for relocation, but how in under the name of goodness did Killen even get a score? Right, the score was a year back or whatever. But I would invite anyone here on this virtual meeting, go to Killen, look at the facility, and figure out how it got a score. It scored 250. Moving forward, it's clear when you look at the big circles on the DEA maps that the rural areas suffer a lack of provision. That's quite clear. I would argue from my own Derry perspective that the report clearly identifies a major deficit in play provision in our area. And I would trust that others, I noticed quite a few waiting to come in, will agree with that statement. Another issue, and I notice that it's recommended to be addressed, the Derry area does not have a neighbourhood play area, nor does it have a district play area. There is a suggestion of one, and I know that I made that suggestion and others agreed, and others made the same suggestion that the Castle Park, for example, in the Derry, would become a neighbourhood play area. I'm concerned when I hear that the third level, I think that's the amber level, we could be looking at 4 to 5 years before those issues can be addressed. And we're red zone, as I constantly refer to, requires capital investment. That was known December 2019. So why were no proposals put forward within strategic capital development or whatever, to address what was a clear and obvious issue? Now, this has nothing to do with Playboard report, Alan. I mean, I appreciate that Playboard have highlighted the issue. So, when are we going to see delivery on the ground with particular regard to the red zone issues? I thank you, Alan, for the report. Colin, I know there's a heck of a lot of work in there, but there were some things which are clear and obvious and should have been addressed in presentations to the rates process for the incoming year. Because what we're looking at here now at the moment is saying to me, this issue will not be addressed until the next financial year. And that is extremely worrying and disconcerting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey, for that. I'll take a couple of other speakers and then we'll address the issues. Alderman Kerrigan.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in. And Chair, I do note the frustration there and Alderman Hussey's remarks there. And I think it would be shared by the majority of councillors, particularly the rural councillors from the old Strabane end. Anyway, he has raised it there, and points are there. One wee question there, and in relation to the kiln one, there was documentation provided to officers there just over a year ago, and I'm just wondering, has there much been done with that or not? Or maybe that can be answered to me at another stage, or maybe come back to me in that one in relation to the relocation or possible relocation of the kiln site. Now, I know there's ongoing issues in relation to the existing kiln facility, which is now closed over 3 years. That site has been closed up and locked up. So, I mean, there's zero play provision. And again, I mean, there's a bus shelter, Chair, has been placed there in Kiln. And, the purpose of it was for the children when we get back to school, particularly those ones in the morning time. I'm getting reports now of a lot of antisocial behaviour about it, because there's nowhere else for the children to go to. There's no play park there and for the young people to hang about in or anything in that regard. They're hanging about and standing on top of a bus shelter, because there's no provision made. And their site has been identified, and I understand and I fully accept, and as I stated before to Colin when he addressed the meeting at the Derry Local Growth Partnership Board, I accept the money that has been spent. And again, money has been spent in relation to the new play park there in Mourne Park and Newton Stewart, and money has been spent in relation to a new play park there in Sion Mills. And fair play, credit where credit's due. I did have a slight concern there. I seen it on the screen very briefly, but for a new play park, was the marking or the scoring there that had been given from Playboard, was it only 500? It wasn't the green level, but it was only 500 for Newton Stewart, and was it 590 for Sion Mills? And these being new facilities, or according to that, I thought when the new facility it would have been higher, maybe slightly higher than that, but maybe I just picked that up wrong. I seen it on the screen. So it's in relation to that, and in relation to why would be counted at why one of them's counted as 500 and why one's 590. But as well as that, it's the identifying these play parks and getting the upgrades. And I know there's no magic money tree there, and again, we'd love to fund them all straight away, but there's got to be a certain amount of money set aside that the ones that are sitting down in these red levels, the lowest of the low here, that something can be done to that these can be financed ASAP or even be shovel ready. You know, I feel there the likes of Kiln one and these ones here and these potential new sites that we could get round to. Sorry, Chair. That we could get round to having plans and that draft up, and even a process of going through planning permission, that we could be ready, even we don't have the money, that if the funding does appear, that we're ready to go. But again, what we stated there, there's a lack of neighbourhood play provision and the Derry DEA. And again, as Alderman Hussey has raised, there has been discussion about trying to improve the castle site in Castledare town. But as well as that, I'd be pushing there as well. Vaughan's home at Newton Stewart, although it's technically it's in the Spairn, it's in your own DEA there, Chair. It is one that predominantly is related to the people of Newton Stewart, situated in the Derry DEA. And there is talk of expansion in Newton Stewart in relation to housing. And I would feel that an area such as Vaughan Home and the area where it's located, and with a chance of expanding there, that could be pushed into a neighbourhood play area also. But there was just a few comments there, Chair. Thank you very much for allowing me in.
Thank you, Alderman Carey. Again, I'll take one more speaker and I'll go back for some answers. Councillor Rory McHugh.
Thank you.
Rory?
You hear me all right? Yeah, I just want to say thanks to Alan for the presentation. Obviously, it's not the first time we've been presented with this plan. We got it as well in the local community growth partnership in my area, and I suppose I'll just go over the same points I made there, Chair. That you know, it is quite stark and concerning to see, and all politics being local. Let's be honest. The Derry ward, which I am a representative for, you know, there's no current play parks in the green section. In fact, they're all in the red. If you leave aside the recent upgrades, which is concerning. I wouldn't be as alarmist maybe regarding maybe the previous two speakers. To use an often used phrase in politics, we are where we are. You know, the deficits have now been identified, and I welcome that, and it shows the job of work we have as a council in front of us. And you know, as a Derry councillor from the Legacy Council, you know, we need the I'm talking about the Strabane Council. You know, maybe we need to take a bit of ownership of that red category as well, given that some of those play facilities were put in place under the Legacy Strabane District Council. But that could be down to, you know, at that time we probably weren't able to lever in the type of capital funding that the Super Council now will have access to. So as I say, we have the deficits identified in front of us. We know the areas that need most attention. Let's get that the rural proofing done. Let's get the quality screened and identify the finance, get it put in place so we can address those deficits when the overarching final report with the recommendations of how to go forward is produced. And I presume, Chair, that we will be addressing those areas of need, or most in need, initially, when we do start to put it, the action in place. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor McHugh, Colin, do you want to come back on those three now?
Yeah, Chair, if I come in first, and maybe
yes.
I'll bring Colin in, and members, just to start off by saying, I think, you know, from an officer perspective, we do share the frustration of members, you know, in terms of, I suppose, the you know, the mammoth task that's in front of us in terms of being able to deliver all of this, you know, but I think it might be worth just for members, benefit just to get Colin to give a minute or two to update members on you know, what we have been doing over the last few years in terms, because our strategy has always been, whilst, you know, we've been developing a play plan which is really all about the future and future needs, we also have been taking opportunities to develop either new facilities or upgrade facilities where we can, and indeed members to you know, consider how we do get things spade ready, if you want, where funding opportunities come along. And there have been some successes right across the district in terms of that, through rural development, through you know, DFC, through other potential funding opportunities, as well as council itself, you know, spending its capital fund in some of those developments. So maybe if I bring Colin in, basically, and Colin can give us a little bit of a very short sort of snapshot of that, which members may find beneficial as well. And again, just in terms of the funding, you know, really, as we said in the presentation, and indeed what we would recommend to members, we do need to agree a funding strategy that will be a mixture, I would imagine, of, you know, looking at the potential of the planning system and developer contributions, as well as central government funding opportunities where we can get them, potentially other funding opportunities such as Peace Plus, and indeed a council finance strategy as well. So, you know, really obviously we will work with members and put recommendations to members on that, and it will be ultimately for members to decide how quickly these can progress, depending on the finance that we do have available as part of that funding strategy. So, Chair, I'll bring Colin in to provide us with a little bit of an update, if you're happy with that, Chair.
Thank you, Karen. No, I'd just like to, just for clarification, pick up on Alderman Hussey's comments. 2019, well, that date involved, okay, that involved going out to public engagement into the DEAs with the wider public, okay, to basically start the journey with the play plan. Between 2019 and 2020, that's when Alan and his team undertook the play audits. Significant amount of work in terms of going around the 83 play areas, in terms of getting these scored, and come back with a score. And it was only really in November, December of last year, where we were in a position to come back to members in each of the DEAs just to go through the various different play value scores, which was a very useful exercise, because what it clearly demonstrated is in terms of where there is a job of work to do. And then just to highlight, then we brought that back into committee as a quick update. So this is an ongoing process in many regards. So in terms of looking at the state of play, it was really only last December when it became very apparent and public to us all in terms of where things were good and where things were not so good. So just to, on that point, in terms of when we identify a play value, every play value has a score irrespective of how bad it is. And the key thing is, Killen was highlighted, it is a very poor facility, but yes, it still commands a score, but it's a very, very low score as opposed to a high score. So every play park will achieve a score. In terms of just looking at the work that we've been doing, this is a very important piece of work, because what it does for the first time is it actually, it's a snapshot of the state of play, to be quite honest with you, in terms of where we are, and sets out the priorities and the work, what we need to do over the next 15 years, and the considerable resources that we need to secure going forward. But whilst we've been doing this strategy, it's not like that we haven't been delivering in terms of play. A few things to come to mind within the former Derry City Council before the amalgamation was that we secured social investment funding of £3 million from the Executive Office, where we developed state-of-the-art facilities at the Brandywell in Kilfennan, at Ballymac, and also at Ballyarnett. Prior to that, we opened up Brook Park. We have an excellent play facility there. And we also delivered a small play provision within the Fountain. And also we delivered a district play park within Drumahoe. Since the amalgamation of both councils, we have our focus has been on the former Strabane council area, whereby we have delivered new play provision at Mourne Park in Newton Stewart, whereby we are on site with Sign Mills at the moment, which is going to be an excellent facility. In addition to this, we have Maher Mason, which has been a long-standing commitment from the former Strabane Council, and we're on site at the moment, and that's going to be exemplar provision. And also with the rural programme, we've delivered a number of small improvements that Alan talked about at Donamana and Ardstraw, etc. So work has been ongoing, but would suffice to say there's a huge amount of work to do. And I think what we need to do is take stock, in line with what Councillor McHugh said, in terms of take stock of where we are and look forward in terms of what needs to be done, how we do it, and who we bring on board in terms of a partnership, and how we secure funding, and how we actually dedicate some money at this stage to start developing schemes up. So when money does come down the line, we're spade ready. So that's, Chair, that's all I'd like to add at this stage.
Thank you, Colin, for that. And the next speaker indicated to speak is Councillor Burke.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Alan, for the update. I think it's clear from listening to previous speakers, obviously play or lack of play is an issue that all councillors are approached on, and it's evident throughout the whole city and district. I would just like to reference the plan for the Moor, just in particular to the plans for Ard Grange and Grangemore and Cashmore. I know myself and my colleague, Councillor Logue, did attend the consultation and discussed our concerns with what was proposed at the consultation in terms of including those areas in the plan for the park at Hazelbank. Just given the issues that we had obviously raised in terms of the distance. From what I can remember from the consultation, now I'll stand here corrected this, but there was talk about a possible neighbourhood play area. And when obviously explaining to yourselves in terms of the makeup of the area, if you were to travel from, say, for example, Cashmore or Ard Grange, you would definitely be out of that 750 radio recommended distance. But more importantly, the concern around the fact that there's a main road at the end of both them estates before you even get over and to where the proposed park was going to be at Hazelbank. Just looking at it, and obviously just from the plan there, I don't see whether them concerns were actually sort of taken into consideration. Because as we explained in the thing with the areas in question, they have a lot of young families, and I don't know if the plan for the park as it was in the consultation at Hazelbank would actually meet the need of that area. So just like a wee update on that. And then secondly, just in terms of Kildrum, just again to reiterate before any decision is taken, just the need for the full consultation with the residents and the community organisation who use the building up there before any decision is undertaken on it. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. The next speaker is Councillor Stephen Edwards.
Chair, thanks for letting me in. And I also want to thank Alan and council officers, I think Colin and Helen, especially for the meetings with HDA and even for facilitating a rural meeting as well afterwards to discuss priorities within rural areas. And I think this plan is to be welcomed, Chair. I think council, in my view, have gone about upgrading and updating play parks on a sort of ad hoc basis. I think we have the foundation here of a master plan, which will be very, very good moving forward. And as mentioned by other speakers, there is a high need within the Derry DA, and we have scored the lowest across the whole of council in terms of DEAs. But as referenced as well, we do have Mourne Park there, which is a good play park. We also have Saya Mills as well as a new build play park. I'm really happy to see a lot of disabled friendly equipment going into Saya Mills. So I would like to ask officers what's their plans on ensuring that future play parks are accessible for disabled children. I think it's a massive massive issue and should be prioritised. In terms of Castle Park and my own DA of the Derry, happy that looking at upgrading that to district, and Vaughan's Homes mentioned in there. Clady and the Glebe in particular are in good, are in massive need of an upgrade in the Derry DA, and also seeing Strabane that Castletown Road is included. I made sure during our meetings that Castletown was included, because that is within the Derry DA, but it would the radius would spread into Strabane town. So I'm definitely happy to see that. Also happy to see a proposal for a play partnership with all relevant organisations and stakeholders coming together just to make things run a bit smoother. But just to sort of wind up, Chair, I think now we do need to look at a capital plan for investment, but we have to make sure that it is fair and equitable across the district, and make sure that those play parks that scored the lowest are definitely prioritised. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards, for that. The next speaker is Councillor Christopher Jackson.
Thank you, Chair. And again, I want to reiterate the thanks to Alan and Colin and Helen in terms of getting us to this stage and all the work that's been done in terms of the plan they did. But and what it does demonstrate is the scale of a task that's in front of us all. But I do have a number of concerns, particularly from a waterside perspective. And I know at a number of the meetings, the DEA meetings that I was at, issues in relation to the triangle had been raised consistently, and it is concerning, worrying that there's no record of them, of those comments, as at any part of the strategy. And I know it's something that has been raised before, and it's frustrating that those voices of that have been heard at the consultation have seemed to have been ignored. In relation to some of the comments around from Alderman Hussey, when Alderman Hussey has highlighted that these issues have been red flagged since December 19, I fully accept that. And in many instances, these issues have been red flagged considerable length of time prior to that. I know that I've had first-hand experience in working with alongside some of our play team, and I've witnessed the fantastic work that they're involved in, and how great they are in terms of designing and delivering play facilities. But and the one of the issues that I want to highlight at this stage, Chair, is Curragh Chair, Curragh there was a consultation carried out, and our council's play team have, along with the local community, helped design a local play facility and have taken it through planning stage. And we've been sitting now spade ready for a number of years. We're also, the planning permission is approaching expiry, and while we have built, as a council, we've built up the expectation in the local community, but we have delivered absolutely nothing. So I would like a report brought back to this committee, or if it's appropriate, Health and Communities, demonstrating exactly what we have done as a council to explore funding, because it's not good enough that we bring play facilities or schemes up to the stage where it's spade ready, and then it sits in a shelf. And if there is a call, if there's a call for us for a specific minister or for an executive department to provide funding to help us meet the major need that's been identified as part of the strategy, I think members need to be made aware of it. So I would like a report brought back specifically on Curragh to find out what funding opportunities have we explored, and what barriers have been put in place in terms of preventing us in delivering the scheme that has been designed. So that's I know Alderman Hussey has indicated in the chat box around expect of us raising expectations, and I fully agree. As part of this play strategy, I had hoped that we would have that there would have been more meat on the bones in terms of a funding strategy, and it's coming out of this. And maybe that's where my own expectations have been misplaced. But we are, as Councillor McHugh has highlighted, we are where we are. We know what the task in front of us is. But I would be more keen to know to explore more in terms of a funding strategy, and I want to use Curran as an example to explore, so we can bring a report back to explore what funding opportunities have we looked into and what barriers are in place. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson, for that. And I'm sure that proposal will be taken on board by Karen. You've had noted, Karen?
Yeah, and Chair, I don't know if this stage, I think we've had 3 members. Do you want Colin to come in and answer a few of those?
Yes. I was just going to ask Colin to come in just to make sure we noted that ask from Councillor Jackson.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, members, and through you, Chair. Just to pick up Councillor Burke's comments, the Hazelbank existing proposal or existing play area, that is to be removed, okay, because that's the site of the new centre, and it is proposed that a new neighbourhood facility will be brought back. Also taking on board the comments, it is proposed that there will be a new play area subject to land, etc., within the Ardgrange area, and maybe that's just been missed, but that's in Alan's presentation. So that feedback has been taken on board, and we do acknowledge the lack of play provision in that area. In addition, we do acknowledge that I suppose the microgeographies of the area and some of the barriers such as roads that are there. In terms of point 2 of Councillor Burke's comments, yes, in terms of Kildrum and with any other play areas that are to be removed, we will undertake local consultation in the area as to what that might look like in terms of how that area can be transformed, be retained as a community space. Following on to Councillor Edwards' comments in terms of just a query about how to ensure that future play provision is going to be compliant with the appropriate standards to make it sure that it's accessible. All the play areas that we do are inclusive, and we look at inclusive play provision. The marketplace has changed in many ways. The suppliers now are producing an awful lot more inclusive play equipment. And indeed, any of the district play provision that we have, what we're looking to do at the moment is go back and retrofit that with the more inclusive play equipment that was highlighted in Alan's presentation. And indeed, wherever there's any facilities, such as toilet facilities, to ensure that these are changing places compatible. In respect to Councillor Jackson's concerns, I do recall the triangle was mentioned, and there was a number of engagements around that. And maybe that's a thing we need to go back and look at, just to see, is there sufficient radial coverage in the area, or does the need still present to put in a play facility there? And absolutely, in terms of Curran, I spent quite a lot of time, as the team did, in terms of community consultation, community engagement, working with the various different respective groups out there, taking a proposal from consultation and planning, which is all time consuming. And where we were with it from a funding point of view, there was an application that was put in at the time to the Department of Justice. That was unsuccessful. And indeed, there was an application put into DFC at that stage. And in many ways was undetermined. And the reason being is it really got to do with available resources. And in addition to this, I think there's probably a wider conversation that needs to be had in terms of where Curran actually sits within the Waterside Neighbourhood Partnership's priorities. But absolutely not a problem. What we'll be able to do is bring back a comprehensive report on Curran in terms of the work that we've done to date and probably what the next stages are. In terms of the funding strategy we talked about, yes, there's a huge amount of work to be done over the summer on this to look at how we're actually going to deliver on all these schemes and what our priorities are. And really, in terms of this stage, it's just an update to members, and we've kind of highlighted in terms of a broad timeline in the report in terms of the next various different stages. So I hope they've adequately addressed members' concerns.
Thank you, Colin, for that. The next speaker is Alderman McCready.
Chair.
Go
Thanks,
ahead.
Colin, for your presentation. Very informative. I like the breakdown. It shows us, gives us a bit of a start state of exactly where we are. Good for discussion. Secondly, Colin, thanks very much for all the work you've done throughout your time. Certainly, that I've been on council. You're a very busy man and your team. So thanks for that. Thank you for the ongoing works in Eglinton, for the remediation, and indeed Maher Mason. I do note that the Falcon DEA in general has done pretty well, largely within the kind of amber area, with the exception to one, which brings me to the question of Gulf Road. I've seen it has been highlighted in red, but there's no supporting text for me to understand what. Well, firstly, why was the entire site removed, and what is the plans there? That's a question. Last question as well, just on new developments. There's been an awful lot of new developments throughout the city and district, and we're going to continue to grow. What is the set criteria to establish a new play park or things like that? Just looking to get a bit of detail on that if anyone is asking in the future. And that's me, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, Alderman McCready. Alderman Ramsey, do you want that?
Ryan covered most, but just with Councillor Cooper there, just on the back of that, or Councillor Jackson. The issue that I have obviously is up there at Ross Downey, where it seems that it has slipped down the priority list, and that's a park which has been dangerous for quite a while. Most of it's been removed now, and there's absolutely nothing there now really for play provision. So I would just like that put up as a flagged better, because I think at the minute it's something sort of possible upgrade, but you couldn't upgrade it. That's definitely not in any position at all. It'll have to be a new park. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Ramsey. Councillor Angela Dobbins.
Thank you, Chair, for having me in. I wish to thank Alan for the report and Colin, obviously, as well for the update. To me, it lends to dire reading because of the area that I am in. Ballyarnett is a very large DEA, but there is a hell of a chunk of that, and it's called Culmore, and to give us, as a previous speaker said, 305 points for what, 2 swings. I really don't understand that, and I share the frustration with Derek and previous speakers too. There's no funding opportunities. The rest of the DEA do have social housing element, and it's this element that does allow for X amount of money to filter down for new projects and play provision and pitches and everything else. This area of Culmore does not have that element. And because of that, I feel that we're being unjustly penalised because of that. Now, as Rory had said, we are where we are. But Chair, we've had a Culmore Country Park. It opened in 2016. Now this is 2021. The community has fed into a concept, a design concept, and are all willing. Everybody has spoke on it. What we would like in that park. That park is just green grass and a few pathways. We haven't even got a shelter to stand on out of the rain, let alone to have a park down there. But the problem, I'm keeping being told, the problem is funding. We're never going to get that funding, because if it's all based on this social element. So therefore, like Christopher has said, I would like, he has pointed to the Triangle area and Currynearn in particular. Can I also have Culmore included in that? Because whilst our kids are going to be expected to jump into their parents' cars and take them on further into the DAA, just because this large corner of that DEA has got 2 swings. And that's just a point I would like to make there, Chair. You know, that the district park, it's there, it should be shovel ready. You know, the design is there, but where are we going to get the funding whenever funding is sort of curtailed and a social element? Thanks.
Councillor Dobbins, and the last indicated speaker is Councillor McKinney. Councillor McKinney.
Chair, thank you very much. Though I'm not in your committee, I would like to speak, if you don't mind.
Yep,
please.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I totally agree with the comments made by Councillor Jackson. 18 months ago, a lot of waterside councillors walked around Tully Alley and Curranure. It's an absolute disgrace. It really is. Something needs to be done. For the children in that area to want to have a decent play park or decent area to play in, they have to cross 2 major roads to get into Drumahole Park. It's an absolute disgrace. And as I said before, I totally concur with what Councillor Jackson says, and I'd like something to be done ASAP. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McKinney.
Chair, would you like Colin maybe to come in and address a few of those points, if that would be helpful? Chair, you're on mute.
Sorry, Karen. No, I'm happy enough that Colin comes in to answer those few questions and concerns.
Okay, thank you, Chair. In response to Alderman McCready's, Gulf Road was removed, and the reason it was removed because the lands were vested as part of the new roadworks on site. What we probably need to do is, it's probably one that is kind of, we need to probably go look at to see in terms of replacement provision in there. So that's one. In terms of the criteria, in terms of new play provision, well, it's really based on need, to be quite honest with you, in terms of, and that need centres around child populations, in terms of children, where children live, but it also is got to do with in terms of the radial proximity of other play areas. We've looked at the various different standards. So where you have obvious gaps, okay, as Councillor Dobbins highlighted in Culmore, you can see there's a demonstrable need there for new play provision. In response to Alderman Ramsey's request, in terms of Ross Downey, it's a very, very poor play area. It's been there quite a long time. And the plan was to remove it in its entirety and to look at new provision within the new refurbished Lincoln Court Centre. At the time when Council were buying lands to accommodate that, we also bought additional lands from the Northern Ireland Housing Executive. Now, of course, that is subject to planning application, resident consultation, etc. But it's one that the alternative provision could be cited there. In response to Councillor Dobbins' request, absolutely in terms of Culmore, in terms of the lack of provision, the only provision we have within that area is Balnagard, which we know to be very, very poor. But however, what we have is a scheme that is a secured planning permission that all the members will be familiar with, which looks at a new community facility there on site. Where we are at the moment is the land transfers they're nearly there. The planning permission is in place and the capital receipt from the land is going to be reinvested back in on site. And we're currently out at the moment for an integrated design team to take that one forward. I think in addition to this, we have been doing quite a lot of work on Culmore, looking at a district-wide play facility. And we're very nearly at a position where we can bring back a report to members and a presentation at committee. Where we are at the moment, we're just waiting for some costings to be done. And I would hope within the next month or 2 months, we'll be able to bring back a very, very state-of-the-art facility to members endorsed to take forward. I do acknowledge Councillor Dobbins' comments when it comes to funding. We, as a council, have benefited greatly from Department of Communities money, but that money is very much aligned to areas of social need, and areas like Culmore don't fall within that category. So as part of our funding strategy, we do need to consider in terms of wherever there's a need, in terms of A, where we can get the money, and B, where we can't get money from sources, and then how that gap can be filled. exciting opportunities do present, and I see that SUPB are out for consultation today on the new peace programme. We do know that that is going to be £1 billion across the province over a period of time. As a council, what we need to do is we need to sit down and we strategically need to think about our green infrastructure and what that proposition might look and how we can secure money from that to look at greenways, to look at natural capital, to look at land acquisition, to look at play provision. So that work has started to commence in-house at a very, very early stage, but we do need to come forward with a very, very, very large multi-million pound proposition to secure money out of SUPB. And just to pick up finally, Councillor McKinney's comments in terms of Tullyalley and Curran. And yes, absolutely, I would concur that the play provision is very, very poor within the area. There's also quite a lot of play areas that do need to be removed, okay, like Milltown Path, okay, that don't serve any need, to be quite honest with you. And we would hope on that side of the road, the Drumahoe Park would have picked up some of those in terms of that wider catchment. But we do accept that, again, microgeographies come into play here in terms of various different communities. And in addition to that, the various different barriers in terms of very, very substantial roadways that children have to cross. So yes, there is a job of work to be done within that area. I'm very much aligned to a conversation with the Waterside Neighbourhood Partnership in terms of sitting down with the water and looking at priorities for spend in terms of play provision. We've worked very, very successfully in the past with the Waterside Neighbourhood Partnership, where we looked at Irish Street and we looked at Rose Court, and we brought both those projects forward in tandem, that we didn't prioritise one over the other because they were a priority for the neighbourhood renewal area. And if they're a priority for the neighbourhood renewal area, that certainly helps us as council officers in terms of prioritising those works within those areas and indeed securing money from the Department of Communities to match fund what money council may have. So, members, I hope that I've adequately addressed your comments. Thank you.
One for that. Alderman Hussey, you just want on briefly?
Yeah, quickly. I noted Alderman Ramsey, David's comment that a project that he was talking about had slipped down the priority list. And I've just heard Colin talking in terms of the Neighbourhood Renewal Partnership looking at a priority list. So I suppose my query is there a priority list that has been, or will there be a priority list created with regard to those sites that have already been identified by Play Board? And if that priority has been established or will be established, has work begun on the costing of dealing with the issues that have arisen because of the report? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. Colin, do you want to come back on that?
Well, Chair, if I maybe just comment quickly, and again, members, just to reassure you that yes, clearly, obviously, the work we've done now has enabled us to consider how we, with members, I suppose, prioritise this job of work, and indeed, we have begun to consider very high level costs. And members, I don't think it'll be any surprise to you to sort of work out in your own minds that would run to tens of millions of pounds. And, we do need to think, how we actually are able to do that. And as we mentioned before, the number of funding sources and I suppose capital funding that, we have in the past been very successful at using to actually refurbish and develop play facilities, and can continue to do so. But certainly, as we've said, the better the funding strategy and the more finances as a council we are able to, I suppose, both lever in and create through our own capital plan, the quicker we will be able to get through all of these. So that's really an update, members, and that is our current very detailed focus in terms of this at a very senior level, both within my own green infrastructure team in terms of play delivery, but also at a corporate level with the chief executive and the chief finance officer. So remember, just Chair, I know I'm mindful that we haven't yet had anyone propose the officer recommendation on item 8. So members, you know, again, if there's any further questions on Colin's report as well before we finish on this area, and you know, we can consider that.
Thank you, Karen, for that. And I did note that it needed a proposal. So John Boyle has on the group chat that he proposed it, so he has. John Boyle, do we have a seconder? Do I have a seconder?
I second, Chair. Councillor Edwards.
Councillor Edwards seconded, so that covers that. Just before we move off the subject, I want to once again thank Alan and Colin for coming on here today. And look, we have got a fair wind at it today, and we really do see the gaps and the issues and around different areas. And as chair, I take them all on board, whether in the Strabane or Derry or Fahan or wherever they might be. And I do appreciate it is a huge piece of work. The in around the finances of it, the capital money, it's a lot of money if we're to try to deliver on these. And I do know we will have to prioritise some of these at some time. And look, they'll not all be winners that'll come out of this, but we need to try and move on. I do understand some people's members' frustrations and around being spade ready, because if money became available in the next year to deliver some of the work on this year, I do believe it's very, very prudent that we are spade ready. And that doesn't take a huge amount of money in those areas where maybe we can have upgrades, and for those areas that have no play provision. And I can talk about Ballymagorry here, where there is probably a general agreement with the local cricket club for a play provision area. But for areas like those that we do have some positive results. But I thank Alan for the presentation, and I thank everyone for their comments on this subject. So we will move on now into Chair's business. The only item of Chair's business that I have today is to just wish Councillor McCann, not Councillor McCann now, all the best in the future. He has been a very, very charismatic and colourful character. And look, I've enjoyed some of his comments. And look, I've often heard him talk on subjects, but would move into history. But I want to, just on behalf of the committee, thank him for his input here and wish him well in the future and wish him good health. The next piece of business is item 7. Any matters arising out of the minutes of the Wednesday, the 10th of February? I don't hear anybody coming back, so we'll move into.
Can I come in there? Matters arising, Chair, please, Councillor Edwards.
Go ahead, Councillor Edwards.
Just an ER 3621 about the sort of looking for greenway plans and community trails. I wonder, could officers give an update on whether they can bring a sort of an update plan, Chair, of where we are with across the entire district with all the greenways and community trails? That would be great, because as you know, Chair, since lockdown and the pandemic, more people are going inside, and more people are coming to me, especially within the Derry, asking, you know, is there any way that we can get some greenways in the Derry and get the existing provision upgraded? So that would be great, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Edwards. Alderman Hussey.
Same issue, Chair. The Director, Karen, will be aware that in the past I have referred to the pilgrimage route that lies between the former abbey at Ardstraw, created by St Eugene of St Eugene's Cathedral, and the pilgrimage route that ran from there right through to Lough as the potential, obviously not as a total fait accompli of a route, but piece by piece building up that route. And I would like to know where we're at with that within the overall suggestion that's coming from Councillor Edwards there, because greenways, as Councillor Edwards has said, are vital, and we do find tremendous number of people out walking on roads where there are no footpaths, and there is a danger there. So, you know, the creation of greenway spaces for people to enjoy throughout the entire council area, but specifically we'll refer, as Councillor Edwards has, to our own Derry area. There is the potential, and that potential has to be taken whenever it exists. Thank you, Chair.
Alderman Ramsey.
Thank you, Chair. ER 3821, access to salt bins, paragraph 3. He pointed out that there had been a reduction in staff throughout a number of areas, and in particular new buildings. I think what that means, what I said there was in particular the north or the western division. Sorry, that would need corrected.
That's okay.
Yeah, happy to organise that. Chair, would you like me to come in on the first 2 points first before you move
Yes,
on?
yes. Yeah. Okay, yep.
Yeah. And Chair, just to advise members, I have organised with the team, I spoke to them earlier, in terms of bringing a presentation to committee. It will probably be the May committee on basically, you know, I suppose greenway provision across the city and district. And I suppose to remind members, some of the members who may not have been on the committee in over the last few years, in terms of, I suppose, the North West Greenways plan and other provision that we have, you know, planned, that we have developed, that we have in planning, and indeed potential strategic opportunities for the past, for the future years moving ahead. I do think it would be a very useful update for members, and also would be able to give members the opportunity to feed into that and consider any potential upgrades, etc. And just members, I think it is quite, as members know, it's very topical during the lockdown period, and indeed, you know, certainly as members are aware, we've a very good track record of greenway delivery and taking opportunities here in this council area. But you know, I think really it's very encouraging now to see as well that our local divisional roads manager has a green blue active travel team now, with going to be coming in within that team as well, which will help in terms of overall provision. So certainly we're more than happy to bring that presentation and include again Alderman Hussey's you know, the particular project in relation to the Pilgrim's Trail as well within that. And you know, members, we are, I think it is useful to do these updates, because I think, you know, we're often working away in the background developing up a lot of these, and you know, it's very useful, like, from time to time to come back to members and just say, you know, this is what you mandated us to do, and this is how we're getting on, and you know, what else can we add to it moving forward.
For that, Karen. Alderman Hussey, back in again.
Thank you, Mayor. I did want to come in on ER 7, but before I mention that, can I thank Karen for that? It will be good to see that the agreed and suggested greenways throughout the council area that we could be looking at. Under ER 37, Firmus Energy, I'm sure quite a few other councillors like myself will have received information from Firmus Energy about a 17.75% increase in the price for natural gas. I'm not sure if any others are aware of that, but I certainly got a notification, and I did query it with them. It has been approved by the regulator. You know, so you know, when folk complain about council rate rise of 1.89, when you see a private company increasing their costs by 17.75%, it's concerning. And when you look at the regulator's report, which tells us that the price of natural gas has doubled since January 2020. Now, it's outside of our control, quite obviously, but I find it concerning that that situation can exist. And I suppose we need to be careful that perhaps monopolies are not created that can tie our electors into a situation, because of the choice of energy that they make that they can't get out of. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Derek, Alderman Hussey, on that there. And yes, I was going to mention later on in regarding to that 17.5% in the hike in the price of gas, and it's very, very concerning. So it is. And I mean, when we take a look at fuel poverty and all the issues that have been raised over a number of meetings around that, if you take even our oil heating at the moment, I mean, for 500 litres, probably and from about 7 months ago to where we're at today, it has went up roughly about 60, maybe a bit more pounds per 500 litres, and it does cause serious concern and around that fuel poverty and people with little money to spend, and probably at times they have to decide whether to eat or heat. But I have noted that to mention it later on, and Karen will just note that.
Thank you.
We will move on now.
Sorry, Chair.
Councillor Dobbins. Councillor Dobbins wanted to come in.
Yeah.
Clarification.
Thank you, Chair. And I do apologise. It's a matter of accuracy. I was present, but I'm not actually noted. I was present at the last. My name's not on there, but it has me further down the page as speaking. So could I have that amended, please? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
That's it. We move on now from matters arising into item number 9, non-domestic renewal heat incentive.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take that one.
That's okay.
Yep. And members, the purpose of this report is to update members on a consultation by the Department for Economy on the non-domestic renewable heat incentive, and they seek endorsement in terms of a response to that consultation. And members, the Department for Economy is consulting on options for the future of the non-domestic RHI scheme, and the consultation opened on the 11th of February and closes on the 9th of April, and they do set out 4 options for the scheme to remain operational for current participants, with present tariffs being the status quo, that the scheme remains operational with tariffs subject to review and adjustment. And option 3, the scheme closes with no further payments made to participants. And option 4, that the scheme closes with compensation paid to legitimate current participants. And the executive's preferred option is option 4. And members, our energy manager has reviewed this consultation document and has provided a draft response to the 6 questions posed by the department. And members, there aren't any current implications for council at this stage. We're asking members to note the contents of the report and endorse the consultation response. And Chair, if any member has any comments that they would like us to include within that, certainly members, I'm happy to take them on board if you'd like, before we send the response back before the date in April.
For that, Karen. The first indicated speaker is Councillor McHugh.
Thank you, Chair Gordon. Chair, we all know the background to the RHI scheme. We could go on about that, I suppose, for hours or days if we wanted, but I think I speak for everybody when I say that the scheme has been pretty much a disaster to the taxpayers here in the north. So we'd be glad to see the back of it, hopefully. So we would be content from a Sinn Féin perspective to endorse the recommendation, Chair. I'm happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rory, for that. Any other indicated speakers?
Can I just come on there?
Alderman Ramsey, go ahead.
Thank you. Just to second that, because this is the next step to moving on this situation, because I've already stressed there is a major issue with the renewable industry progressing. The Republic of Ireland are way ahead of ourselves up here, and it does need dealt with, because it's going to be one of the biggest ways of meeting our targets. So it is going forward of our footprint. And I welcome that this scheme is closing now, with compensation being paid to legitimate current participants. So just the second, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Ramsey, for that. I have no other indicated speakers, so we move on to item 10, sustainable food places.
Yeah, Chair, I'll take that one as well. And members, this is the update, members, on Council's application to Sustainable Food Places to become a sustainable food place. And members, the ambition at Sustainable Food Places is to create a transition to a healthy, sustainable and more equitable food system. And since 2013, they have helped places across the UK to establish multi-sectoral food partnerships, developing food strategies and implementing positive action across a whole range of food issues. And members, what they do is they convene and facilitate networking, knowledge and skill sharing among food partnerships across, I suppose, the whole of the UK. And they have offered development grants to Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales. And really, I suppose their approach and their holistic approach is based on 6 key issues, taking a strategic and collaborative approach to good food governance and action, building public awareness, active food citizenship and a good food movement, and tackling food poverty, diet-related ill health and access to affordable healthy food, creating a vibrant, prosperous and diverse sustainable food economy, and transforming catering and procurement and revitalising local supply chains, and finally, members, tackling the climate and natural emergency through sustainable food and farming and an end to food waste. And members, you'll be aware that there are 3 food partnerships across our region at the minute. And we would plan to bring the 3 partnerships together as one forum, namely the Northwest Food Partnership, to work together to create a new sustainable food system for the region. And this project, members, is strategically aligned to the Acorn Farm bid to the UK Climate Action Fund to create a food movement in the Northwest. And members, just for your information, we have submitted an application and been successful to £5,000, and we would propose to match that with an additional £5,000 from existing budgets. And members, so I would ask the Council endorse the aims of the Sustainable Food Partnership and allocate our existing budget towards the match funding that we've achieved. And members, we can update members if they're happy in the coming months on how this actually moves on, if that would be useful to members.
Thank you, Karen, for that. First speaker, I have 2 speakers here indicated, Councillor Durkin and Councillor Fleming. Councillor Durkin.
Just wanted to thank Karen for the report and happy to propose the endorsement, the aims of the Sustainable Food Place. I think it's exciting. I have seen it work elsewhere, and it's great that these 3 partnerships are coming together in this forum. And I look forward to further updates, and it's all important in our wider sustainability aims and our wider climate adaptation. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Durkin, for that. Councillor Fleming.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to Karen and the team for all of the work put into this, and they welcome both the 5,000 and then obviously the matching 5,000 from ourselves. And as Councillor Durkin, Mary has well articulated, the aim of this and crucial as we move forward. The importance of a safe and affordable food chain is important to everyone, and obviously in trying to bring that about, also to eradicate tackling food poverty, and also appreciate and welcome the amalgamation and joining together of the three groups, because each of them will bring their own experience, and even in more recent times during the pandemic, and articulated very well the sheer amount of work and help people have across the industry have offered in terms of food and other help to residents. So it's something that in terms of sustainability and building affordable access as we go forward, this is certainly a step in the right direction, and thanks to all who involved. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Fleming. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. I'm looking at the key issues on one of the elements, transforming catering and procurement and revitalising local supply chains. And I'm mindful of the quite important local agri-food businesses that exist within our own district council area. But at the same time, I'm also mindful that the producer within our area, within the agricultural sector, is often held back with viable costing that they have to endure, particularly from the pressure that's on them from supermarkets. So within that, the need for our local producers to be able to be economically viable in the prices they get for their products is all of that sort of consideration within the considerations of this issue moving forward. And of course, if we're using local producers, we're reducing the carbon footprint, etc., etc., etc. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you, Karen. Do you want to just come back on that?
Yeah, and just for obviously members, consideration, I think really, we would very much hopefully and continue on the journey where our wider rural hinterland is actually the market garden for the city and settlements within the district, and certainly it would very much be reducing food miles and engaging with producers in the district would very much be part of this under that particular part of the key issues. So certainly we will ensure that that engagement is made and is progressed, for the mutual benefit of, I suppose, the citizens and the producers within the district.
Thank you, Karen. And just as chair, can I just welcome the report? It's good to see it move forward. And look, anything that enhances, safe and affordable food has to be welcomed, and the three groups coming together has to be welcomed. But I do take on board Alderman Hussey's discussion in around the agribusiness in there, and I do understand that when I see a special for potatoes or meat or whatever it is within the big multinational companies, it's the local farmer takes the hit on that. It's not the company if there's specials or anything. It's the local grower or producer that takes the hit on it. And I always say it, that I would encourage everyone to endorse buy local produce at the present time, to produce or to support our local producers. Next item 11.
Yeah, Frank's going to take that.
Frank? Go ahead, Frank.
You're on there, Frank.
Sorry.
Ahead, Frank.
Yes, this is a report looking for approval for the name of a new housing development in Central Drive in Cregan. The proposal is Arran Court, and it's in line with the council naming policy. So the recommendation is to adopt the first preference, Arran Court.
Thank you for that, Frank. Councillor Burke.
Thanks, Chair. I'm happy to propose. It's good to see we're now at this stage of the development within Cregan. I know it's obviously Cregan being an area of high interest from new housing applicants, and this hopefully will assist with some of that deficit. Also think it's quite fitting that they've used this name albeit it's a bit before my time, but from what I'm told, it's just the name of the previous lads that once stood there, so
Yeah.
happy to propose.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder?
Second that, Chair, John Boyle.
John Boyle, seconded. Thank you. Thank you. We move on to item 12.
Connor's going to take that, Chair.
Connor.
Yep, thanks, Chair. This is to seek members' approval to delegate authority to the Chief Executive with regard to a number of minor works contracts.
Yeah.
Members will be aware of the significant impact of the pandemic on council finances. Thankfully, at this point, all the financial losses have now been completely mitigated due to funding secured from central government through FURDO, the Department for Community Support for Financial Losses, and the DEAR support for waste management losses. Alongside this, due to the restrictions imposed by the pandemic, numerous works have not been able to be advanced in this financial year. It is critical in preparation for recovery that these types of works are urgently advanced. These include essential maintenance works, repainting of play areas within the Strabane area, replacement fencing at the Riverside Walk at Brehend, and a repainting of street furniture within Derry City and Strabane town centres, as well as purchase of essential additional grounds maintenance equipment for winter grading, as well as to equipment to support the Don't Grow, Let It Grow campaign. As identified above, all of these works can be funded from existing budgets for the year ending 31st of March 2021, which have not been able to be spent as a result of the pandemic. It is important, therefore, that these are progressed in advance of 31st of March 2021. Whilst the majority of these works are sub 30,000, the total when combined requires that the works will be publicly advertised. As per council procedures, member approval would be required in this instance. In addition to the above, council have secured external funding of approximately £50,000 to replace litter bins within Derry City and Strabane town centres. The bins will be purchased through a single tender action to ensure consistency in terms of appearance and so on with the bins. That again will require member approval. The funding has been provided on the basis that the bins are in place before the 31st of March, again 2021. In order to ensure that all of the above progress in a timely manner, members' authority is sought in terms of delegating authority to the Chief Executive with regard to approving the return quotation tender exercises. All of the works purchase of equipment will be procured in line with procurement requirements. As detailed above, additional in-year budget provision has been identified and secured in terms of the work and equipment purchases. Reports detailing the outcomes of the various procurement exercises will be brought to members for information in due course, and all agreed appointments will be recorded on the register of decisions, which will be reported to members at the end of the financial year. And again, members are asked to delegate authority to the Chief Executive to take forward these minor works as laid out in the report.
Thank you, Connor, for that. The first indicated speaker is Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Connor. No issues with the concept of authority to the Chief Executive. Just a couple of items that I note within the report. The Riverside Walk repairs at Prehen, and I suppose it brings into question Riverside Walk repairs at Sion Mills. Is there any chance that we're getting them soon? Secondly, the bins again, city and town, where the conformity or of the bins in the city and town centres are important. But is there any intention in post the 31st of March to have the same conformity extended to other settlements throughout the district? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Derek, for that. Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Chair. I'm not entirely sure if Derek or Alderman Hussey has proposed the recommendation.
No, it hasn't.
Well, on that basis, Chair, we're happy with the report, and I'm happy to, on behalf of Sinn Féin, propose that we accept the officer's recommendation. And particularly, it makes sense in terms of allowing us to deliver on some of the initiatives that Connor has outlined. But and I particularly welcome the repair of the walkway along leading up to the Brehend Boathouse, because it has been in a state of disrepair for quite some time. And if this allows us to have those repairs carried out in a timely fashion, we're glad to they have the arrangements made. So, Chair, I'm happy to propose that we accept the recommendation.
Thank you.
Chair Derek here, happy to second that. No issue with the delegated authority.
Yep. Conor, do you want to just come in and maybe speak on the concerns that Derek has raised?
Yeah, I know Karen's looking as well.
That's right.
Just a couple of things in terms of the Sion Mills walkway. The funding is secured for that. The works are being delayed because of a requirement from DERA and the Rivers Agency in terms of when works can take place. But as soon as the conditions are right in terms of water levels and so on, those works will progress, and as soon as possible this year. And as mentioned, in terms of the fence at Berhennis, the existing fence has fallen into a state of disrepair and needs to be replaced. I would say that we also have additional funding within the funding package to replace other litter bins across the city and district, and we will be doing that in terms of the outlying and villages and the more rural areas, both in terms of litter bins and dog foiling bins. So we will see over the next number of weeks as the teams are out installing these bins, and we certainly can look at a uniform approach to our key town and village centres in terms of bins going forward. Certainly something we can look at.
Thank you, Conor. Karen, do you want to come in as well?
Yeah, no,
okay.
Chair, I'm happy that we've Conor's covered that.
That's okay. Thank you. So that's item 12. Items 13 to 24 are for information, unless someone wants to speak specifically on them. Councillor Edwards, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, Chair, I was just going to update members quickly on item 14 in terms of the Maboy update report, if you're happy, Chair. Members, I think it's just to advise it clearly, and again, apologies that there was an administrative error, so we didn't have the update last month on the actual committee report. But basically, in page 92 of your pack, you will see that NIA and DERA have asked, for feedback from members, in particular on a few questions that they would, want to incorporate in terms of the governance procedures around stakeholder engagement. So, basically to try and get members' views on the number of elected representatives, any particular interest groups that you feel should be considered to be nominated, etc. And what perhaps we would suggest, members, is if you're happy for any member to send their comments through to Conor, then he can collate them, and then we will actually ensure that collated response is included within the report next month that we bring back, and is also sent on to DERA. So, members, I would welcome your thoughts on that.
Thank you, Karen. Is there anybody there wants to speak on this item on Maboy? Because of item 24, Mary, do you want to speak on the Maboy one?
Yes, please.
Go ahead, Mary.
Just briefly, but Karen's actually reassured me there that we can get the chance to email in our comments and suggestions. There are certain groups that I think as a council we should be talking to in terms of identifying the experts that are mentioned or referred to, the expertise that we do have within those groups. Yes. I just wonder if I could ask too, Karen, and it's an issue that Councillor McCann had been asking the last time, and we wanted to keep an eye on this. The letter to the OFM DFM, was there a follow-up letter done? Because I think, it's important that while this remediation is progressing, it's not negating the necessity for a public inquiry. So just if you could update us on that.
Yeah, and absolutely, Chair. That members was sent off. That letter was sent off the day after full council. Obviously it was ratified at full council, and we sent that off. The OFM DFM copy and it to all the ministers, not all relevant, all the ministers. On the day after full council. So as and when we receive feedback, we will update members on that.
Thank you, Karen. Councillor Fleming on the same issue.
Thanking you, Chair, and thanking Karen for the updated report in relation to Maboy, and just a couple of things. Obviously, they welcome in terms of coming to the conclusion of the appointment of the integrated consultation team and then a renewed date for the trial in relation to this. But Chair, and I'm conscious that Karen just is there about people forwarding on their thoughts and whatever. In terms of the because I think we adopted the broad principle of stakeholder groups and how to go forward in relation to them. And I just, Chair, wanted to pick up on the one in terms of elected representatives. And I think they're down in different parts, or 2 to 4 or up to 4. And I just think we have given the issue that is Maboy and the wide-ranging implications that it has right across City and District and beyond, that certainly we would be of the view that the system that we use, that is a rep from each political party, one from the independents would go on this. So if that's something that we need to put through individually or whatever, but that certainly would be our position with regard to elected reps. I think 4 elected reps is cuts across our way of doing business, and I think we do need to employ it on this occasion.
Chair, we're happy to feed that back to DRF. Members are happy that we do.
That's okay. Thank you, Karen. I have 2 speakers here on item 24, and the first indicated speaker is Councillor Edwards on number 24.
Chair, thanks for letting me in. I just want to welcome the fact that there'll be plans now to go to an immediate consultation for the HGV issue in Clary Village that has been raised in Council as well a few months ago. And I want to thank our Minister, Nick O'Malley, for meeting with myself and local residents and really taking on this issue and listening to their concerns. And I think this is overall a positive move. Where hopefully we get a resolution within the next few months and not years. And it's a massive issue for the local people there. And there's people who's come to me, Chair, saying that they're thinking about selling their houses because it's that bad with the lorries. But fully welcome this, and I thank the DFA officials for advancing it, and hopefully we'll get a long-term solution in the near future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Rory McHugh.
Cormagat, Chair. Thank you, Chair. As Councillor Edwards said there, this issue has been ongoing in Clary for years, and my own party have been lobbying the department since Chris Hazard's time there about this issue in conjunction with the local community group there. It's disappointing that the people of Clary once again, they have to wait again now for another consultation. Begs the question, why was those concerns identified in the original consultation? Why was it not included then in the original proposal? Rather than now having to go out to consultation again. But I mean, if it's a process that has to go through, then it has to be done. But as I say, I welcome it, and I'm sure the people of Clary will welcome it too, whenever it's eventually exhausted and the proposals put into place. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McHugh, for that. And your comments will be noted. Alderman Hussey on item 16.
Thank you, Chair. By the way, I concur with the remarks with regard to static. There needs to be movement on that. And sorry, Councillor Edwards, it's not your minister, it's our minister, because ministers serve all of the community, and I hope we can all remember that. With regard to item 16, the pollinators, I noted the list of council properties is in the main, in fact, totally, I think, cemeteries on the mow it, grow it, mow it, whatever the phrase is. To ask Karen or whoever, has there been any partnership proposals with regard to this programme? I'm thinking, and the Derry councillors will know the exact area that I'm thinking in terms of, an area like the triangle in the fly off the A5 into Victoria Bridge. there's a big triangle of grass there. Obviously it's not in council control, but is there any partnership agreement with the likes of road service where an area like that, council could go in, and provide, the wildflower planting, etc. And I'm sure there are other areas like that where council could work in partnership. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Chair, if I can come in there, basically to update members that yes, there are ongoing partnership and collaborative approaches to this. Clearly this is an update on our strategy, I suppose, which is council owned. But clearly in terms of our green infrastructure plan, we have a wider partnership, and certainly we have been approached by the divisional roads manager from DFI to look at the potential for areas within the district that DFI could work with us on possible pilot sites with the view to having as many of them as possible brought into this type of initiative. They're certainly keen, as indeed members. We have started, as you're aware, to work with partners around other green infrastructure opportunities. So we will continue those discussions, but certainly the stage that we're at in terms of DFI, we've suggested some sites. I will check if this is one. If it's not, I'll make sure that it actually goes on to the list. And then we will feed back to members, I suppose, how they're getting on in terms of possible opportunities for DFI in particular, because they've approached us, but certainly with other partners through the green infrastructure partnership that we have, and certainly members, more and more of the partners are recognising the value of their green space in order to actually provide increased biodiversity within the city and district. And certainly that's to be welcomed, and clearly what we're sort of doing our bit, but certainly more and more of the other agencies and indeed I suppose across government departments are recognising the land and the green infrastructure that they have and how they can work with us in terms of this particular issue.
Thank you, Karen, for that. Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Chair. Again, I want to welcome the report. It is great to see the recognition of the value of the wild or the Don't Mow It, Grow It campaign, and we have seen the benefits of that, or we've rehearsed the benefits of the biodiversity numerous times at this committee, and it's great to see this plan coming into fruition. My only concern is, and it's maybe related to the comment from Alderman Hussey. See, parts of we've seen the success of the Don't Mow It, Grow It, but I know I've seen the other side of it as well, and I'm referring to the former park at Barge Hill and the Top of Hill area, where it's a site that's been identified for the Don't Mow It, Grow It, but there's been a junction there, the junction from Crowley Road leading into Barge Hill. There's a very sharp turn, and that had become overgrown to such an extent that it caused road safety concerns. So whilst we're creating a better environment for everybody going forward, I think we need to bear in mind that there may be implications, and we need to be factor in any potential road safety concerns. So I just wanted to flag that up, because I know that area has been identified as part of this plan to be part of this scheme, but there's, at that very tight corner, there's a negative consequence to this as well. So if that could be looked at, even if it's paved out, or if there's an alternative there, which would create a safer environment, that would be appreciated, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members, we're happy to look into that. I do know that certainly sightlines is something that are taken into consideration. I'm not sure the specifics of this particular site, but we will engage with Councillor Jackson and find those out. But certainly, you know, safety of the public and drivers is very, very important, and clearly we will need to make sure that we continue to actually look at that in terms of any of these schemes. Thank you.
Councillor Durkin, do you want in on the same issue? Councillor Durkin? Councillor Durkin?
It's all right, Chair. Thank you. I'm all right.
Okay. I'm just on the issue of item 16. It's good news, so it is. But like Councillor Jackson has said, there are going to be areas where, you know, maybe would be advisable to be very, very careful when these areas are studied, that there are no safety issues and around them. And the other thing I would say, Karen, as well, any sites that are identified as included in this project that don't mow it, grow it, that information is let out to the community there, because we as public representatives, we get hammered day in, day out as we come in now to the spring and into the summer about grass not being cut. And I think these areas here, and I welcome the environmental issues and the biodiversity and around that. And I think we really need to have the communities really informed of where these areas are designated, that they're not getting them mixed up with areas that, look, we need to cut grass, whether it's council or road service or housing executive. But
yeah, no, members, fully happy to take that on board. I do know that we do publish the lists on the website, but we can do some social media, etc. on that day, make the members of the public aware. And I think members, just as Connor touched on earlier in the report in terms of minor works, etc., we you know, we do actually need to use specialist equipment to do this. It's not a matter of just leaving the grass to go wild forever. It's that sort of doesn't work, because wildflowers don't grow in that environment. So it is very carefully managed scheme. It's not just, you know, left wild, if you like. So certainly we will update, and I did speak to our communications team about doing some communication around this particular report following the committee today, so we can do that and follow it up with social media and make sure that the members of the public are informed of where we're coming from in terms of this particular issue.
thank you, Karen, for that. And maybe there's a square in your garden that sometime when we get out of this lockdown, we can go out maybe and have a look at it. And maybe include you in one of these projects.
Chair, I actually did have one last year, but now I'm actually in the process of putting in my polytunnel, so I have to move it.
There you are, there you are, there you are, there you are. That is all the items under general business. So could we have a proposer that we move into confidential?
John Boyle.
Second
by Derek. Thank you. We'll give it a few minutes, Karen. Let us know when we can go.
Absolutely, will do, Chair. If we can just have IT let us know whenever we've stopped streaming.